And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome to Open Connection, I'm your host, Robert Pictou. Our show today comes to you from the unceded and traditional territory of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh people. Franklin D. Roosevelt's first 100 days set an example for many organizational leaders who feel that they too have to use the first 3 months to make decisive action. On today's special two-part Open Connection, we bring you highlights of Premier David Abee's Safer Communities Action Plan.
I've been traveling the province, talking to people across British Columbia, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me to hear about the priorities of British Columbians. They are happy with what our government has done to date, but they expect more from us in key areas of priority around housing, making sure that people have a decent place to live that they can afford, around healthcare, that they have access to a family doctor, and when they have a health crisis, they get the care that they need when they need it, around a secure economy that works for everybody and is also part of our solution to the global challenges of climate change and reducing carbon pollution. And finally, what we're talking about here today, around making sure that our communities are safe for everybody. Safe for the people struggling with mental health and addiction in our streets, safe for families, safe for seniors, safe for all British Columbians. Today, I'm here to announce with many people our BC Safer Community Action Plan. The core of this plan is coordination. Coordination between justice system actors, nonprofit organizations, cities, the provincial government, Indigenous people, working together to ensure safer communities. This action plan has two key tracks. One around enforcement, recognizing that we have zero tolerance for violence in our communities, making sure that people are protected. The second track around intervening, helping people break the cycle of life in and out of jail, preventing crime before it happens. Intervention services that recognize the root causes of crime. So as part of today's action plan, I'll be announcing several different initiatives. They are all connected by this key goal of coordinating across agencies and governments. First, we're standing up new coordinated response teams to address the issue of violent offenders. These teams are made up of police, dedicated prosecutors, probation officers. Their mission is to prevent violent crime before it happens. And when it does happen, to make sure that violent offenders wait for trial in custody and not in our community, putting people at risk. We're focused on supports to help people break the cycle of repeat offending. We are expanding mental health crisis response teams into more communities. This includes 12 new peer-assisted care teams, with some that will be Indigenous-led. These peer-assisted teams intervene when people are in mental health crisis in our streets, freeing up police to focus on crime instead of social services. And more CAR programs in more communities to pair police with healthcare workers that have the skills to support police in responding to people to mental health crisis. The Attorney General is taking steps to reassure the public and build confidence in our justice system. He has issued a direction to prosecutors to implement a clear and understandable bail policy for repeat violent offenders within the existing federal law so that prosecutors, the public, all British Columbians understand the justice system is looking after their interests. That policy will be in place on Tuesday. We are also providing training and resources for prosecutors to work with police to make sure that the materials that are put in front of a court in the case of a violent offense are complete, so the court is making a decision on all of the facts and can protect the public. We also need Ottawa as a strong partner. Changes to federal rules around bail have had unintended consequences, especially when coupled with recent decisions from the Supreme Court of Canada. I've already spoken to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and several federal cabinet ministers about the need for these rules to change. It was the topic of discussion at a federal, provincial, territorial table, and we will all continue to work at the federal level to address those issues. To tackle the overrepresentation of Indigenous people in our justice system, we are opening 10 new Indigenous justice centres across the province. They will be operated by the BC First Nations Justice Council and offer free, culturally appropriate services to help people address the root causes of why they're in contact with the justice system and break the cycle. For people in our communities who are struggling with addiction, mental health issues, they need treatment to get better. We are working with the St. Paul's Clinical Addiction Program, along with Providence Healthcare and Vancouver Coastal Health on a new model of addictions care, one that moves people seamlessly from crisis response in our emergency rooms and our streets, to detox, to treatment, and supportive housing. It will fill the gaps between services where people might relapse and fall between the cracks. And it will be a model for the entire province. Finally, in the upcoming spring session, our government will introduce new legislation targeting unexplained wealth and organized crime. Unexplained wealth orders are a tool to go at why organized crime exists, to make money. We will be seizing the assets and going after the proceeds that attract young people to organized crime and gang life, the flashy cars, homes, and luxury goods. And we will remove the profit incentive for organized crime and send a strong message. All of these measures build on work that our government has already been doing on this very important issue for British Columbians. New supports for people leaving correctional institutions to help them break the cycle and make a fresh start. Reversing cuts to sexual assault centers, providing support to victims of crime. Investing in housing, mental health, and poverty reduction. And fighting the money laundering and organized crime that fuels the toxic drug crisis. Today's Safer Communities Action Plan is an important step forward, with more to come. Everybody in our province deserves to feel safe in our communities. As your new Premier and as your government, that is what we are focused on. We're ready to build the BC we all envision, one where everyone can build a good life and feel safe at home in their community. Thank you.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
The solution is to just lock up Aboriginal people. This is the solution for people who are broken today, is to put them in prison. Being Aboriginal means you're a lesser person. And so in those institutions, you're treated as a lesser person. Even if what I'm doing is wrong, ultimately there's a reason why I'm doing these things. And so in those places, there was never the space or the opportunity or the safety to find out why. The correctional guards, the police, the arresting officers, the judges, the lawyers who weren't willing to try to understand why I was doing the things that I was doing. The hatred and resentment that I carried for many years towards all the systems that failed me since I was...
Thank you for staying with us. The BC's First Nations Justice Council has been entrusted with the mandate to transform the justice system and to create better outcomes for Indigenous people through the implementation of BC's First Nations Justice Strategy. That strategy was signed March 2020, was jointly developed by BC First Nations Justice Council, BC's First Nations communities, and the province of British Columbia. Let us rejoin the conversation with the Director of the BC First Nations Justice Council, Corey Wilson.
Thank you, everybody. I am really honored and grateful to be here today on behalf of BC's First Nations Justice Council. Honored, of course, to be on the territory of the Coast Salish people. And we at the Justice Council are absolutely delighted with the announcements from the Premier today. The BC First Nations Justice Council is committed to bettering the lives of Indigenous people, breaking the cycles that find overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the criminal justice system, as well as providing supports that are wrap around and get at the root cause of the reason we have overrepresentation. The creation of 10 new justice centers on top of the 3 we already have, and the virtual one. The 3 are in Prince George, Prince Rupert, and Merritt, and we have a virtual justice center. By the end of the year, we'll have 14. And the centers are there to provide holistic wraparound supports for Indigenous people, as well as it's employed with Indigenous justice champions, people who are committed to the equity for Indigenous people. We have elders, we have diversion workers, we have lawyers, we have paralegals, we have all kinds of people, cultural knowledge keepers that are there to provide those wraparound supports. And it's absolutely vital that we have that to break these cycles. The justice strategy, I encourage everybody to read our justice strategy. There are 41 strategies. The creation of the justice strategy targets strategy number 4. And when we talk about encouraging everybody to read it, we also encourage you to ask yourself, what can you do to advance our strategy? We're committed to advancing all 41 strategies, but we can't do it alone. We talk about having allies and whatnot, but what we really need are accomplices. We need people to work with us to advance and to make systemic change and to make things different for Indigenous people in this province. All of the announcement have just happened. Creating safer communities will without a doubt benefit Indigenous people and create a safer, stronger British Columbia. My culture, I come from the Northwest Coast, I'm Kwakwakiwak. Our culture, potlatch system of governance is one where everybody has a role, everybody has something to contribute, and everyone has something of value to add to this. And we know that societies are stronger, better, and more people are more successful when everyone is involved and everybody has equity and everybody has a say. So my hands go up to the Premier and to everybody else that has committed to this safer communities, and I look forward to us leading the way really in a stronger, greater province, one that is completely inclusive of all people and everybody has a chance to live whatever it is they'd like to live.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Carol Lee, and I'm the chair of the Vancouver Chinatown Foundation. I would like to begin by acknowledging with gratitude that we're gathered on the territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. I'm very honored to be here today for this important and very exciting announcement. At the Vancouver Chinatown Foundation, one of our core missions is to revitalize Chinatown, to protect its history and help restore its vibrancy. As many of you know, Chinatown is more than a tourist trap or a place to get the best food. It's a community. A community of small business owners, merchants, artists, families, and local residents, including many seniors. And like other communities across the province, we've seen an alarming change in our neighborhoods since the pandemic. Vandalism has increased. Theft and violent attacks are on the rise. We're seeing more people visibly struggling with mental health and addiction challenges in our communities. Many people don't feel safe walking the streets they walk down every day for years. But Premier Eby's announcement today is an important and exciting step towards improving community safety and well-being, so we can help people get the supports that they need and make sure people who are committing repeat violent offenses are held accountable. This is welcome news for Chinatown, and I'm sure many communities across BC. Today's announcement will help our community get back on its feet and will support our efforts to bring and make Chinatown safer and more welcoming to the people who live, work, and visit every day. For that, I'm very grateful to you, Premier Eby, and your government, and I'm optimistic for a brighter future.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, This is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Welcome back to Open Connection. The Vancouver Police Department was formed in the spring of 1886, when Vancouver was just a small village of 500 residents known as Granville. Today, there are more than 1,700 civilian and sworn members, reflecting the diversity of the many communities it serves. Let us return the conversation with VPD Chief Adam Palmer.
My name's Adam Palmer. I'm the Chief of the Vancouver Police Department, and it's my pleasure to be here today on the traditional unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh people, and thankful to be standing here today with Premier Eby and the other distinguished guests behind me, including my colleagues from the RCMP, Vancouver Police, and our new Mayor, Ken Sim, who is also the Chair of the Vancouver Police Board. The members of the Vancouver Police Department, along with first responders everywhere in this province, dedicate themselves every single day and every single shift when they come to work to helping people in crisis, to protecting people from violent and repeat offenders, and to compassionately assisting society's most vulnerable. However, in recent years, that has become more challenging, and increasingly, we've been hearing from people in community from all corners of the city and beyond who just don't feel as safe as they used to. We've heard comments about the revolving door of justice, people living in dangerous and squalid encampments in one of the most beautiful cities in the world, random stranger assaults, anti-Asian hate crimes and hate crimes against other people in our community, and the overall feeling from community members who don't feel safe in their own neighborhoods. This undermines the trust and confidence in the institutions that are in place to serve our community. These are issues that I and other police leaders around the province have talked about before, and we've said that something needs to change and that something in the system is just not working and a lack of coordination. I am very encouraged to hear many of these concerns echoed and supported in this announcement by Premier Eby. And I believe today's announcement to launch a new Safer Communities Action Plan is a very positive step in the right direction. Today we've heard pragmatic ideas that when implemented will help to address some of the most complex health, safety, and social issues that are affecting the quality of life for a growing number of people in British Columbia. I support these initiatives, namely those that address violent offenders and the sometimes revolving door of our justice system, that expand mental health programs to provide better outcomes for people suffering from challenging mental health issues, that take a stronger approach and that will hopefully see fewer repeat violent offenders released so quickly on bail back into the community. Measures that will focus on culturally appropriate and sensitive support for Indigenous people involved in the justice system. Initiatives that improve detox and treatment care for people battling addiction, and also initiatives that will utilize unexplained wealth orders to help tackle organized crime and money laundering in our province. These initiatives build on and complement some of our community partnerships and programs that we already have in place in Vancouver, but will enhance them and make our programs even stronger. Certain things have proven to be successful, such as the assertive community treatment teams, assertive outreach teams, CAR 87 and CAR 88, our mental health early warning system and our great partnership with Coastal Health, our chronic offenders and high-risk offenders unit, our treatment on demand report, our Indigenous Advisory Committee and Sister Watch committees. But I also know the challenges we face did not surface overnight, nor will they be solved overnight. We will continue to support increased coordination and accountability in all of our combined efforts. It requires more than just a policing solution, and everybody needs to be at the table. It's paramount if we expect to drive improved outcomes for those that need it the most. The public expects that of us because everybody has a right to feel safe and be safe in their communities. In closing, I would like to congratulate Premier Eby on being officially sworn in this week and thank him for the launch of the new Safer Communities Action Plan. It's a positive and welcome step in the right direction, and I look forward to working with Premier Eby and his team to make life better and safer for British Columbians.
Open Connection will be right back after these messages. And now, from the CFTK-TV studios, this is Open Connection with your host, Robert Pictou.
Founded in 1918, the Canadian Mental Health Association is the most established, most extensive community mental health organization in Canada. Since its founding in 1852, CMHA-BC has advocated for changes to legislation and policy affecting people with mental illness that ensured the availability of community alternatives, access to housing, and income supports. In this final segment of Open Connection, CMHA-BC CEO Jonathan Morris.
Mr. Premier, Ministers, Mayor Sim, and my fellow speakers, thanks so much for the opportunity to provide remarks at today's important announcement. My name's Johnny Morris, and I have the privilege of leading the Canadian Mental Health Association's BC division. And I also want to acknowledge that today I'm speaking from unceded, ancestral, Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh territories, and I'm grateful and honored to be speaking. When someone is experiencing a mental health crisis, what they need is a response from someone who can relate to where they are at, someone who can offer mental health care, someone to sit with them, listen to them, and help them find the community and health-based supports that will work for them. And a peer-assisted care team, and you've just heard about an expansion from the Premier announced this morning, does just that. These mobile civilian-led teams known as PACT include a trained mental health worker, like a clinical counselor, and a trained peer worker, someone with lived and living experience of mental illness or substance use-related challenges as part of these response teams. Peer-assisted care teams respond to crisis calls and provide people with compassionate care, including crisis counseling, de-escalation, and connection to ongoing community service and support. These teams offer invaluable, trauma-informed, culturally safer care to people in their own homes, in their communities, freeing up police to do their jobs. And we expect that peer-assisted care teams, including within this expansion, will prevent unnecessary involvements with our already stressed emergency room system. Peer-assisted care teams focus on sending health and social responses to health and social emergencies. And today's expansion of this model takes us closer to a vision of the right care at the right time in crisis. The first team was launched on the North Shore by the Canadian Mental Health Association's branch in November 2021, offering support in English and Farsi. And that team, led by the CMHA Northwest Van branch, has responded over 750 times to people in distress. That's 750 times that PACT has communicated with community members experiencing crisis and a time of need. Similar teams are set to launch in Victoria, led by AVI, and US, led by the Lower Mainland Purpose Society. Those who are worried about a loved one, about their own thoughts of self-harm or suicide, feelings of hopelessness, anxiety, or substance use, will be able to soon reach out to a peer-assisted care team in additional communities in the coming months. And we're very grateful to the province for the support for this work. One of the first recommendations from the Lepard-Butler report recently released was to develop civilian-led teams. And this recommendation also featured in the recent Special Committee on Police Act reform. And it's really encouraging to see the province act so quickly on these important recommendations. We are very excited to lead this transformation of crisis care with partners in this province alongside municipalities and other partners. And today's announcement from our new Premier demonstrates a meaningful commitment to mental health care that works.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Open Connection. The greatest distance in the existence of man is not from here to there, but the connection from his mind and heart. If we can conquer that distance, we can soar like an eagle and realize our immensity within. I'm Robert Pictou.